Hello. Forgive me, glasses change. Means you go a little bit blurry, but it means I can see what's down here. Don't need that. Right then, hello everybody. Thank you for that reading. Wonderful, wonderful words in those readings, very eloquent. You're expecting something so deep and spiritual now, and now you've got me. Well, when I was first asked to speak today, to cover one of the slots during August, I was like, yeah, no problem, that'll be fine. And just the only kind of caveat was on the theme of what we've been, the theme for the year of loving life and trusting God. And I was like, umming and ahhing, so I don't need to come closer. There we go. Umming and ahhing about what to do. So anyway, I went home and I thought, I'll work something out for today. 2 weeks later, and starting to panic, I still couldn't think of a passage or what the subject I should do for today. And I really needed to make a start, as my available 3 days from work were quite few. I thought, I'll take some burden off myself. So I went into the office at work, and I inquired, is there any chance of a couple of days off? I'll have them anywhere, don't have to be together, just a couple of days. And the response was, no. We're already short-staffed, and with people away through the summer holidays, it's just not going to be possible. And in fact, a lot of people went off with COVID, and my working days actually got bigger rather than smaller. I thought to myself, well, I've got the weekend coming up. I can do most of it then. So, the weekend arrived, and on that weekend I had a 2-day migraine. So as you can imagine, I got nothing done, let alone even think about it. Now, determined to remain positive, I thought to myself, I will think of something as I go through my working week. Something will come to me. Halfway through the week, and nothing had come to me. At that point, I started to change my approach. I started grumbling to God. Things like, why? Come on. And eventually ended with, I get it, I'm nothing without you, but I'm on a time scale here, Lord. A few more days, and I started to question my health. Why can't I get my brain into action? It must be the migraine, I told myself. It's done some damage. Well, the day before a day off, and I finished a little earlier that day, and I thought to myself, great, okay, I've got a day off tomorrow, I've got a few hours, beforehand before I get busy again. I shall think of something. So I went upstairs and poured myself a bath. I thought I'm just going to relax, close the door, free of distraction, and think about what I'm going to do. So I ran a deep bath. I got in there. I closed my eyes. And about 2 hours later, I woke up very cold. So I leapt out, I was like, I've got to get dinner on now, Tracy will be home shortly, and that was that. Anyway, that night I went to bed feeling really quite dejected. I thought, oh well, I was like, Lord, just give me something. And I attempted to read my Bible in some very poor light, without my reading glasses, as I'd left them in my scooter, and I squinted at my Bible, and I saw just 3 words as part of a sentence, just happened to be the first thing I focused on. I wasn't really looking anywhere in particular. And it read, I give thanks. And boom, it hit me. Unfortunately, it was one of those double-edged moments when God answers a prayer, but actually he kind of addresses you at the same time over something. You see, it was a correction as well. It was an answer to prayer, as I couldn't think what to do and what passage that hadn't already been covered on this subject. But it was also a gentle prod, because to be honest, now I'm not much of what you would call a prayer warrior, but what I'm always able to do is give thanks. And that tends to be how my prayer life works generally. And that's something I hadn't really done much of recently. I kind of lost focus. For me, busy with what needed to be done and feeling fed up with all that I saw wrong in the world, the government, the shadow government, the fact that I couldn't get any time away, the fact that I had things to do at home and don't have neither the time or the money to deal with them, I was focusing on everything that was wrong. At night, I fell asleep, giving thanks to God, and thankfully continuing to do so right now. But why does it matter so much? Let's just start with some things that maybe are obvious. We do have a lot to be thankful for. We know as Christians that for those of us that believe in the finished work of Christ, we have already been given the most amazing gift and have much to be thankful for. Forgiveness of sins and everlasting life? Yay! Now, I know that for most of you here, that is not news, right? Some may even be thinking, well, cheers, Paul, he's got out of bed for this, but I state it because this is a starting point for so much more. And I think it's good for us to remind ourselves that we have so much to be thankful for, so we are able to live it with a thankful heart. And I noticed during the celebrations, a lot of those celebrations were people being very thankful for things. But like me, recently bogged down with stuff, I forgot how to be thankful for a short time, and I think we can all forget sometimes to live like we have what we actually have. Okay, we have a kingdom that cannot be shaken. What does that mean? It's secure, it won't be taken from you against your will, you won't come home and find it gone, it won't lose its value like the pound in your pocket with massive fuel prices and inflation, it won't rust or wear out, and in fact the longer you have it the better, because let's face it, as you move to the inevitable conclusion of a long life, that's when you're going to be most thankful that you have it, right? Who wants to face eternity without it? But more than that, we can be thankful now. Thankful that we can rest in what's already done. As Jesus said on the cross, it's finished. No more striving. His burden is light and it's easy to bear. That's all amazing, I get it, but I'm preaching to the choir. You all know this. That's why you're here, I guess. And if you don't know this, please come and speak to anyone you've seen up here this morning. We'd love to tell you about it. But why does the reality so often know more than just a head knowledge of that we've got to be thankful? Why does it matter so much? Why does being thankful, what does it do for us? I know at times in my life when I've got my focus right, it does matter and everything is just better. However, as I've already said, that's not always the case. I am thankful at least that God pointed that out to me. Although I'm sure there are a million things that I don't get right, but thankfully God isn't here to overwhelm us. He leads us gently in order to help us. What you do well isn't perhaps something I am strong in, or vice versa. But he knows us personally and treats us that way. He won't make us do what we can't do, but he will fan into flames the things that we can do so that we may do even greater things, even more so than we ever thought possible of ourselves. And when I scribbled that down on a page, I couldn't help think of something when I read from Fan into Flames, just as a little aside. There's Lou. Hello, Lou will remember this. That may be Michelle. From Soul Survivor some years ago, there was a guy called Ents from New Zealand, and he gave this wonderful illustration. It was on my mind because normally this time of year when we used to take a group of maybe 20-ish away to Soul Survivor, and it would be this weekend, we'd normally be away or just coming back. And he gave this wonderful story of him and his young daughter. And they were going to make a campfire in the garden. And like every young girl, Daddy, I'll do it. So he's like, okay, I'll show you how to do it, because she doesn't have a clue how to make a fire. And he's trying to get it started in little embers. And he says, now we've got to gently blow on it to get that flame going. So she, like any little girl, I'm going to turn away from people so I don't spit on you, went to gently blow on it and went, which wasn't helping very much. In fact, what was impacting the fire had more spit on it and was probably a hindrance. But what she couldn't see behind was he was gently holding her and blowing and helping her, and she was excited because she was making the fire, but and she was, but with her Father's help. And it was a wonderful illustration of how God helps us, and never forgotten that one. I probably never will, but so I share it for you now. Bit of an aside, but it's just on my mind. And these things bring us even closer to him, so that from that place we can better serve his purpose. And his purpose for you will be different to the person opposite you, because he has made us unique. Unique so that he can be glorified by us through him. However, thankfulness, being thankful, isn't something that should be unique to just some of us, but all of us, regardless of our giftings and circumstances. Forgive me, it's dry as a bone. Read in Colossians 4, verse 2, devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful. And pray for us too, that God may open a door for our message, so that we may proclaim the mystery of Christ, for which I am in chains. Well, there's a statement. He's talking about being watchful and thankful, and while he's in chains. So apparently thankfulness is regardless of our circumstances. Paul here was in chains, locked up for doing nothing wrong at all, just for preaching the gospel and being a believer in Jesus, like you guys. And you too may be going through your life now in circumstances that possibly are dominating your attention. And you can insert into there, in the place of chains, what it is for you. It may be a work, a family, a health, school, university, or business thing that's keeping your attention. You would think being in chains would be a distraction, but Paul is thinking of being watchful and thankful. Life is full of distractions, and we can feel so far removed from things to be thankful for. Yet it's clearly of importance. Which leads to another verse from Colossians, from 3, verse 1. It says, Since then you have been raised with Christ, set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. Now, I've spoken on before how hearts and minds are often quite interchangeable when they're written in the Bible. And for me, when I forget to be thankful for a time, it's not that I'm not thankful, but that my mind has become consumed with things here on earth, and so that my heart starts to follow. This is not to say you can't be engaged in the things that you're doing here on earth. You know, if you have a family or a business or work or studies, you would better give it your full attention, right? Or lest you see it fail. But the point I want to make is, whilst we must engage with these things, we need also to keep them in their proper place. These things can seem everything to us now, but will they matter in 100 years from now? Less maybe how our relation was with God and with the others around us while we did all the stuff. If we are to live our lives with thankful hearts, then we do have to set our hearts and our minds on things above, not below. But how? It feels like trying to balance a contradiction. To me it does anyway. Modern life seems to draw our head in one direction whilst our hearts are yearning to be elsewhere. This can't be just another rule. Don't do it or do it. And of course it isn't. Nothing the Bible is a just do that for the sake of it. And so many, including my younger self, saw being a Christian as just that, a long list of rules to stop me having fun. But even the 10 Commandments are more than just rules. And they're often referred to as a moral law. Something much deeper than just do it or don't do it. What that does, though, is it provides a clue for us as an application of how to remain thankful, and even, dare I say, if you're living in a ditch and the world despises you. But how does that work, and how do I illustrate this? And this is just me and my story of me trying to put this story together. God put it on me, and I'm sharing it with you. You know, it's tempting to focus on endless stories of how God remains faithful, even when we are not. Therefore, we should be thankful, right? But the fact is, we often perceive this as just a head knowledge, and it's quickly forgotten. We could perhaps look at the Israelites in the desert and how quickly they had forgotten all that God had done for them in order to illustrate the consequences of not living thankful. And it would certainly be true. But the sad truth is that we often have more in common with the Israelites grumbling against God than the other positive illustrations we could look at, like maybe Daniel remaining faithful to God no matter what. So as I pondered these questions of why does it matter so much to be thankful, why is it important for us and our relationship with God beyond just give to God what he is due, like some kind of debt, I found the answer in a slightly unexpected place, and the Bible. Okay, the Bible, because there are so many passages, and we've seen some of them this morning, which are very helpful for us, where we're instructed to be thankful because of what he has done, maybe, because people being thankful for believers or for fellow workers in Christ or for gifts, all good things, but they can still be just a head knowledge sometimes. Yeah, that's very true, and off we go into the universe again and forget all about it. We also see Jesus being thankful to God that he hears him. Now, for me, we're getting warmer as that speaks to my heart more than my head. That God hears us is something I can get enthusiastic and excited about. For me, that brings it into the present and more of a now relationship than just a story of old. But the place I found the answer that made the most impact on me and speaks to my heart and made me truly get it was Google. Now, I know you're disappointed at this point. You're probably looking for that wonderful spiritual thing that I had. But allow me to explain. I looked up, okay, I've got to try and say this word carefully now, whilst I was trying to work out what to do for today, a list of synonyms for thankfulness. And this is what I found. And I've got some written down here, make sure I've got the right ones. And it kind of blew my mind a bit, because I never stopped to think about it in some of these terms. Admiration, affection, appraisal, an attraction, an awareness, a gratefulness, a gratitude, a knowledge. You can pick out whatever speaks to you. But when I think of thankfulness, I don't think of those. And for me, suddenly it all became incredibly clear. And it immediately had a profound effect on me, because now I think it brings the kind of head and heart into balance. They don't any longer feel like a contradiction. It's possible to be thankful in all circumstances because, for me, my understanding of thankfulness has become so much broader than just gratitude alone. Now, maybe this is because of my lack of good English. But do we ever really think about it in those terms on a regular basis? I don't know. But I do know that all the other attributes of being thankful can work out in me in a way that previously would only happen when I turned my mind to worship. This is purely because I'd never thought about it in that way. Now maybe I get it, I'm alone in this, and you all had it all along. If I've got this wrong, well, I'm looking really foolish right now. I know my English ain't great. Using the word ain't for a start. But it's, my hope in sharing this with you is that maybe for those of you who are the same as me, can have that jolt in your thinking and your perception of how thankfulness is so much more than that kind of just being grateful. I don't think for most of us we think about it that much. Now, being thankful is more than just my present circumstances, as it includes an awareness and a comprehension and knowledge from my mind and the affection and love and enjoyment from my heart that I can understand rather than just feeling it at the time. And if we can learn to be thankful as a habit, it will penetrate our very being with a perception of God and his attributes. Now, I don't know if you noticed anything about that list, and it certainly did for me. Doesn't a lot of it look like a list of words we might use to describe God and his nature and his gifts for us as well, those kind of positive things? And I think this is huge, because if these words really do embody much of how we might use, to describe God and his relationship with us, and surely that brings into focus not just the importance of thankfulness, but what is being exchanged in our relationship with him through thankfulness. Being thankful makes us become, in some ways, the image of God, as these attributes reflect in us who he is and what he gives us. And since we are made in his image, this doesn't seem such a far-off concept. If we are being thankful, then maybe we are reflecting him. We can then see him in love and affection, regard, respect and awareness, and all these other things on the list that we can so often take for granted or tune out in the noise of a busy day. It will allow our head and our heart to align, because that which our hearts would do spontaneously when we had good reason to be thankful can now do the same when it's just that head choice to be thankful, because our hearts do quickly follow. And in contrast, look at the list of, there's another word I can never pronounce, antonyms. Yeah. Apathy, criticism, disapproval, disbelief, disrespect, hate, insensitivity, and others. If that's the not being thankful, or at least the opposite of being thankful, I think if we're not being thankful, maybe not quite so strongly, but to some degree, these things do creep in, certainly apathy and others. One list reflecting all that is good and comes from God, the other, well, you get the picture, okay? I think it is possible to use these two lists as a litmus test on ourselves, maybe to reveal where we are at, and if we've got bogged down in the moment, or, and are we doing well? Have we forgotten to be thankful, like I had? If you think like me, maybe you have, then take time out. Be still, be thankful, and know that God is God. And so finally, I'm going to leave you with this from Psalm 100. It says, a psalm for giving grateful praise. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name, for the Lord is good and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. At verse 4 again. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name. Giving thanks, being thankful, living life thankfully is entering into his presence. And it is therefore a relationship. And I think that's where it starts. So my earlier question is when I started this journey, what is thankfulness? That is my answer. It is relationship in his presence. Thank you.